Good day, everyone. Our lesson for today is all about the good life. Before we tackle the lesson, we will first examine the lesson objectives. First is to examine what is meant by a good life. Second, to identify how human attempts to attain what is deemed to be a good life. And third, students must recognize possibilities available to human being to attain the good life. So here's the introduction of the good life. In ancient Greece, long before the word science has been coined, the need to understand the world and reality was bound with the need to understand the self and the good life. For Plato, the task of understanding the things in the world runs parallel with the job of truly getting into what makes the soul flourish. In an attempt to understand reality and the external world, man must seek to understand himself too. It was Aristotle who gave a definitive distinction between the theoretical and practical science. Among the theoretical discipline, Aristotle included logic, biology, physics, and metaphysics, among others. Among the practical ones, Aristotle counted ethics and politics. Whereas truth is the aim of the science, the good is the end goal of the practical ones. Every attempt to know is connected in some way in attempt to find the good, or as said in a previous lesson, the attainment of human flourishing. Rightly so, one must find the truth about what that good is before one can even try to locate that which is good. So in the previous lesson, we have seen how misplaced or an erroneous idea of human flourishing can turn tables for all of us, make the science work against us rather than for us, and draw a chasm between the search for truth and for the good. In this lesson, we endeavor to go back a little and answer these questions. What does it really mean to live a good life? What qualities as a good existence? Granting this understanding, we are assumed to be in a better position to reconcile our deepest existential needs as human beings and assign a tool to measure around the world. So we will go now to Aristotle and how we all aspire for a good life. It is interesting to note that the first philosopher who approached the problem of reality from a scientific lens as we know now is also the first thinker who delved into complex problematization of the end of good life, the happiness. This man is none other than Aristotle. Compared to his teacher and predecessor Plato, Aristotle embarked on a different approach in figuring out reality. In contrast to Plato, who thought that things in the world are not real and are only copies of the real in the world of forms, Aristotle puts everything back to the ground in claiming that this world is all there is to it, and that this world is only reality we can all access. For Plato, change is so perplexing that it can only make sense if there are two realities, and these are the world of forms and the world of matter. Consider the human person. When you try to see yourself in front of the mirror, you normally say that and think that you are looking at yourself. That is, you are as the person who slept at night, and you are the same person looking at yourself now. Despite the occasional change like a new pimple that grows on your nose, the same is true for a seed that you threw out of the garden last month. When you pick it into the same patch of the land where the seed ingrained itself into, you may be surprised to see a little plant showing itself to you under the sun. Plato recognized change as process and as human phenomenon that happens in the world, that in fact it is constant. However, Plato also claimed that despite the reality of change, things remain and they retain their ultimate whatness, that you remain to be you despite the pimple that now sits at the top of your nose. Plato was convinced that reality is full of this seemingly contrasting manifestation of change and permanence. For Plato, this can only be explained by postulating two aspects of reality, two worlds if you wish. This is the world of forms and the world of matter. In the world of matter, things are changed and impermanent. Unlike to the world of form, these entities are only copies of the ideal and the models, and the forms are only real entities. Things are read in the world because they participate in what it means to be read in the world of forms. Aristotle, for his part, disagreed with his teacher's position and forwarded the idea that there is no reality over and above what the sense can perceive. As such, it is only by observation of the external world that one can truly understand what reality is all about. Change is a process that is inherent in things. We, along with all other entities in the world, start as potentialists and move toward actualities. The movement, of course, entails change. Consider a seed that is eventually germinates and grows into a plant. The seed that turned to become the plant underwent change, formed the potential plant that is the seed to its full actuality, the plant. Aristotle extends this analysis from the external world into the province of the human person and declares that even human being moves according to some end. Every action that emanates from a human person is function of the purpose it calls telos that the person has. When a boy asks for a burger from a Filipino burger joint, the action that he takes is motivated primarily by the purpose that he has, invariably to get full or to taste the burger that he only sees on TV. When a girl tries to finish her degree in the university, despite the initial failures she may have had, she definitely is being propelled by a higher purpose than to just graduate. She wants something more, maybe to have a license or land a promising job in the future. Every human person, according to Aristotle, aspires for an end. This end, we have learned from the previous chapters, it is the happiness or human flourishing. Aristotle stated that no individual, nor young or old, fat or skinny, male or female, resists happiness. We all want to be happy. Aristotle claims that happiness is the be all and end all of everything that we do. If you ask one person why he is doing what he is doing, he may not readily say that this is the happiness that motivates him. Motivated by what motivates him will reveal that happiness is the grand motivating force in everything that he does. When Aristotle claims that we want to be happy, he does not necessarily mean that every day has an happiness that we obtain when we win a competition, we eat our favorite dish in a restaurant. What Aristotle actually means is human flourishing. It is a kind of feeling that one has mixed out his potential in the world, that he has attained that crux of his humanity. Next is the happiness as the goal of a good life. In the 18th century, John Stuart Mill declared the greatest happiness principle by saying that can action is right as far as it maximizes that attainment of happiness for the greatest number of people. At a time when people were skeptical about claims in the metaphysical, people could not make sense of the human flourishing that Aristotle talked about in the days of old. Mill said that individual happiness of each individual should be prioritized and collectively dictates the kind of action that should be endorsed. So consider the pronouncement against mining. When an action benefits the greatest number of people, said action is deemed ethical. Does mining benefit rather than hurt the majority? Does it offer more benefits rather than disadvantages? Does mining result in more people getting happy rather than sad? If the answer to the said question are in affirmative, then the said action mining is deemed ethical. The ethical is a course meant to lead us to the goal of good and happy life. Through the ages, as has been expounded in the previous chapters, man has constantly struggled with this external world in order to reach human flourishing. History has given birth to the different schools of thought, all of them aims for the good and happy life.
Materialism. The first materialism were the atomists in ancient Greece. Democritus and Leucippus lead a school whose primary beliefs is that the world is made up of and is controlled by the tiny indivisible units in the world called atomos or seeds. For Democritus and his disciples, the world, including human beings, is made up of matter. There is no need to posit immaterial entities as source of purpose. Atomos simply comes together randomly to form the things in the world. As such, only material entities matter. In terms of human flourishing, matter is what makes us attain happiness. We see this at work with most people who are clinging into the material wealth as the primary source of the meaning of their existence. The first group of people, the materialists, argues that having material wealth or physical possession is the primary source, meaning of man's existence as such as the shopaholic. Hedonism. The hedonists, for their part, see the end goal of life in acquiring pleasure. Pleasure has always been the priority of hedonists. For them, life is about obtaining and indulging in pleasure because life is limited. The mantra of this school of thought is the famous eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow we die. Led by Epicurus, this school of thought also does not buy any notion of afterlife, just like the materialist. On the other hand, the second group of people are the hedonists. Jeremy Bentham answered the question, "What is good?" by adopting hedonism. According to this view, the only thing that is good is pleasure. The mantra of hedonists is eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow we die. If you've watched the movie Spirited Away, the parent of the child turned into pigs after being greedy of the food presented in front of them. Hedonists do not deny that many kinds of things can be good, including food, friends, freedom, along with many other things. But hedonists see this as instrumental good that are valuable only because it is some source of producing pleasure. Again, here we hear the word instrument, meaning it is a means to an end. Food, friends, freedom, among others, are treated as goods that produce pleasure or happiness. Likewise, on the negative side of the lack of food, friends, or freedom is instrumentally bad because it produces pain, sufferings, and unhappiness.
Stoicism, another school of thought led by Epicurus, the Stoics expose the idea that to generate happiness, one must learn to distance oneself and be apathetic. The original term apatheia precisely means to be indifferent. For the Stoics, happiness can only be attained by a careful practice of apathy. We should, in this worldview, adopt the fact that some things are not within our control. The sooner we realize this, the happier we can become. Stoicism is a school of philosophy that hails from ancient Greece and Rome in the early parts of the 3rd century BC. It is a philosophy of life that maximizes positive emotions, reduces negative emotions, and helps individuals to hone their virtues of character. Stoicism was designed to help people live their best possible lives. At any moment, in any situation, and at any stage of life, Stoicism provides a framework for living well. It reminds people of what is truly important, providing practical strategies to get more of what is valuable.
Next is theism. Most people find meaning of their lives using God as fulcrum of their existence. The Philippines, as a predominantly Catholic country, is witness to how people base their life goals on beliefs that hinge on some form of supernatural reality called heaven. The ultimate basis of happiness for theists is the communion with God. The world where we are in is not only just a temporary reality where we have to maneuver around while watching for the ultimate return to the hands of God.
Humanism. Humanism, as another school of thought, exposes the freedom of man to carve his own destiny and to legislate his own laws, free from the shackles of a God that monitors and controls. For humanists, man is literally the captain of his own ship. Inspired by the Enlightenment in 17th century, humanists see themselves not merely as stewards of creation, but as individuals who are in control of themselves and the world outside them. This is the spirit of most scientists who thought that the world is a place and space for freely unearthing the world and seeking for ways on how to improve the lives of its inhabitants. Humanism is a progress philosophy of life that, without theism or other supernatural beliefs, affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment that aspire to the greater good. Result of motivation of humanist current, scientists eventually turn to technology in order to ease the difficulty of life as illustrated in the previous lessons. Scientists of today, meanwhile, are ready to confront more sophisticated attempts at altering the world for the benefit of humanity. Some people now are willing to tamper with time and space in the name of technology. Social media, as an example, has been so far a very effective way of employing technology in purging time and space. Not very long ago, communication between two people from two continents in the planet will involve months of waiting for a mail to arrive. Seeing each other real time while talking was virtually impossible. Now, communication between two people wherever they are is not just possible but easy. The internet and a smartphone made real-time communication possible not just between two people, but even with multiple people simultaneously. Technology allows us to tinker with our sexuality. Biologically male individuals can now undergo medical operation if they so wish for sexual reassignment. Breast implants are now available and can be done with relative convenience if anyone wishes to have one. Hormones may also be injected in order to alter the sexual chemicals in the body. Whether or not we agree with these technological advancements, these are all undertaken in the hopes of attaining the good life. The balance, however, between the good life, ethics, and technology has to be attained. Summary: man is always looking for the good life. Everybody has a different understanding of what makes up the good life. Man has put a lot of effort into defining what constitutes a good, happy existence throughout history. Some people, such as the classical theorists, believe that happiness had to do with a person's inner being. This end objective has placed special emphasis on the soul because it is a source of our humanity. For the soul to live well and flourish, it must achieve a particular balance. Happiness didn't take center stage in people's lives until the 17th century, when John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism made it a full-fledged ethical foundation. There are numerous schools of thought today, each of which claims to have the secret to happiness. The pursuit of this enjoyment by man has, for the most part, been led by science and technology. At the end of the day, the only issue is whether science is moving in the correct direction to discover what it truly means to lead a good life.